Hi, Writers, Cruz here. Thank you so much for joining me. In this video, we're going to be looking at Accuplacer Writeplacer English as a Second Language samples. And these are essays which scored as low as a 1 and as high as a 6. And this video is specifically going to focus on two sample essays. Both of those essays scored a 1. And we're going to be looking at why that is, and that's what this video is about. If this is a video that interests you, please stay tuned. And if this is a video which does not interest you, please take a look at some of the other videos that I've created. Some of them are on poetry, some of them are on ACT, some of them are on writing essays for Accuplacer Writeplacer. So there's a variety of other videos which may interest you. Now, for those of you who would like to see what a score of 1 looks like, let's take a look. And please understand, writers, that the minimum requirements are 300 words, which, as you can tell, just looking at the highlighted section here, you can already tell that this student did not meet the minimum requirements of 300 words. And they're looking at 4 specific parts within the Accuplacer Writeplacer ESL, and that is the word use, sentence use, grammar, and organization and development. In a previous video, I go over all 4 of those sections in more detail, and so I will not do that in this video. Let's take a look at the prompt itself and just take a peek at what was the actual prompt for this particular essay. So the prompt is as follows. And here they have the passage and then the actual assignment. So technically, this part right here would be the prompt. We call it a prompt. You can also call it the assignment. So the passage they give is: a woman recently received an inheritance of $25 million from an unknown distant relative. She cannot decide what to do: spend it, save it, or give most of it away. And then the assignment or the prompt is: if you suddenly received a large sum of money, what would you do with it? So one of the first things that I would do when I look at this is I would actually use part of the passage to help me with this assignment. Because if it's asking me, if you suddenly received a large sum of money, what would you do with it? I would definitely use this part right here to then construct my body paragraphs. So one body paragraph would be to spend it, one body paragraph would be to save it, and then another body paragraph would be to give it away. Now you might change the ordering of it. Maybe you want to start with save some of it first, spend it, and then give it away, or you can change the ordering. But why not use the passage to help you address the assignment, which is, again, receiving a large sum of money and what you would do with it? Now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the sample essay, the first one that they provide, which scored a 1. And here is what they have. If I suddenly received a large sum of money, period. So the first thing I see is this is a fragment. Why? Because it's starting with what is called a dependent clause, and it needs a comma, and then it needs an independent clause or a complete sentence following it. So that is one issue that I see. I did like how the student began with the prompt: if I suddenly received a large sum of money, but again, it's a fragment and they just put a period at the end of it. One first thing, I'm give some money help for children hospital, comma, I'm helping get well and happy. Okay, so obviously with this first sentence, not only do we see what's called a comma splice, where a comma is used to separate two complete sentences, when in fact a semicolon should be used, or a period. We don't have an adequate grasp of grammar here because we hear one first thing, I'm give some money, help for children hospital. So obviously, even if they had a period here, we're missing what I would call subject verb agreement, and it's missing important words to understand what the writer is trying to get across. Then it says, I am helping get well and happy. Again, we are missing important words to understand what the writer is trying to say. Then it says, next sentence, then it says, because I think they are happy, me happy too, comma. Then after that, I am come my country. So they begin with a dependent clause with the word because, which is not bad. However, and they use a comma, but we sort of have, then after that, I am come my country. So this doesn't really tell us anything. Again, we're missing words. And then it says, because I think they are happy, it should say, I am happy too, instead of me happy too. They did use the correct form of TOO, meaning also, so that was great. And then their last sentence, because my country have a lot of poor people need helping. So again, missing words, and it's a fragment. They start with the dependent marker because, just as they did in the previous sentence, but again, we have a fragment and missing words. Now in the next part, they say, they are need food and healthy. So really, I believe that what they are trying to say is they need food in order to be healthy. We're not really sure. We sort of see what is called a helping verb, are, and we're not sure if the student wants to use it as a helping verb or a linking verb. So they are need does not work. And so again, this idea of grasping some basic grammar skills are lacking in this particular essay, amongst other things. As you know, right, writers, this student did not even complete the 300 minimum. With that said, let's continue. And the last thing we can just say, and the last thing, I would like to travel around the world helping poor people them need. I'm assuming that that means them need. That all might decide. So you can see here, and the last thing, I would like to travel around the world helping poor people. So that part right there, if they had just kept the last thing I would like to maybe to do is travel around the world helping poor people and having a period, that could have worked. But again, we definitely see some significant grammar and sentence structure issues with this particular student. And then they end with, that all might decide. And so maybe they wanted to say, that's what I would decide to do with the money, or those would be my decisions. And so we really see this idea of subject verb agreement, missing words, and understanding even the tense of verbs, past, present, and future tenses. And we can understand why this student scored a 1 on their essay. So again, keeping in mind, right, writers, the 4 main components that they're looking at are the use of and the grasp of the English language and vocabulary words, the use, sentence use, looking at dependent and independent clauses, grammar, and then the organization and development. If I had to say definitely one positive, they did stick to the topic. And so that was definitely one positive that I can say, that the student did maintain focus within their organization and development as far as staying on topic. So that is one positive takeaway from that particular sample essay. Now, right, writers, let's go ahead and look at sample essay number 2, which also scored a 1, and we'll see how they did. As you can see, they did not have the minimum of 300 words. And so that definitely would take points away, because if they're asking you to do the minimum of 300 words, then please do the minimum of 300 words. That is the minimum requirement. So you must at least follow that. Now let's take a look. If I suddenly received a large sum of money, comma, I gave most of it away. All right, first sentence is actually not that bad. They have what's called a complex sentence. And really, if they had just had, if I suddenly received a large sum of money, I would give most of it away. So immediately I noticed that they have an issue. I gave most of it away. They have an issue with subject verb agreement and understanding which verb tense to use in their sentence. Then let's go on to the next one. I gave most of money for the people that need this money. So again, definitely a better job than the previous essay, because we do sort of understand what they're trying to get across. I think here they should have said, I would give most of the money away for the people who need it the most, or I would give the money away to the people for the people who needed it the most. But again, and it's sort of clear, but we see I gave subject verb agreement, most of money for the people, so most of the money for the people that they need this money. We've got some issues here with the sentence as far as missing words, and also understanding that if people, we say who, not that, because people are individuals, and so we would use who as our relative pronoun rather than that. Next sentence. Someone that don't have job, comma, or he or she can't do job because he or she is sick. And so it sounds like they're trying to explain people who would need this money, or someone who doesn't have a job, or he or she cannot do the job because he or she is sick, but we're not really understanding how that connects to this idea of the inheritance and the money. So again, we're seeing some issues with subject verb agreement and not really understanding its connection also to the topic. And the next sentence says they can use the money for their life. So not too bad on that. They can use the money for their life, their livelihood. It's not bad. We understand the idea they're trying to get across, this writer. Their children can go to school, in cold weather can wear warm clothes, they can eat good foods. So in this case, this idea of as far as plural versus singular nouns, and then we've got a comma being used when something else could be used, depending on how they really wanted to set up the sentence. I think they're trying to give examples of how they can use the money. For example, their children, they can afford to send their children to school, and for instance, in cold weather, they can buy their children warm clothes, and their family can eat good food or can eat healthy. A number of different ways they could have written that. But again, at least their ideas are clear as far as what they're trying to get across, which I admire for this student's writing. Next section here, next paragraph break. If I suddenly received a large sum of money, comma, I can spend one part of my money to my friends that they need money to do everything that they want. So again, we're seeing what wants to be maybe a complex or a compound complex sentence, but unfortunately it gets lost. The first part again is fine, other than the capitalization of the I. I can spend one part of my money instead of to my friends for my friends. And so understanding how prepositions are used and then they could use the money maybe to buy anything they wanted, and this perhaps could have been a separate sentence instead of attaching this dependent clause to the previous part, which then becomes a little bit confusing. And then they finish with, they can give me my money later or when they don't need my money. And again, here they use a comma before the conjunction or, which is great. But again, we're not really clear because this sentence, I guess what they're saying is they'll let their friends borrow the money and they can either return the money at a later date or, when they don't need my money. We're not really sure how that connects with the friends. And so it starts to fall apart, right, writers, at the end here. So, as painful as this experience was for some of you who are watching this, sometimes it's important to see how English as a second language learners begin to grasp the the English language, and these language acquisition skills take time. And so I admire these students for attempting this Accuplacer Writeplacer and providing us with examples so that we can see what they're doing well and also where they need improvement, so that it gives you a chance, right, writers, is that it gives you a chance to really compare and contrast. Are you ready to take this test? Because if your writing looks very similar um, to these particular writers, then that tells me that you are not ready to take this test. And there's nothing worse than forcing yourself to do something that you're just not prepared to do, and you're just not ready for it. And so I'm very appreciative of these particular students um, for providing us with some examples that we can look at, of examples of what not to do, and examples of understanding how the acquisition of a language does in fact take time, and that we've got to give ourselves enough time before immersing ourselves into a test that we're just simply not prepared for. Thank you so much, Right Writers, for watching this video. I hope that this video was helpful as you continue your process of learning, whether it's learning a new language, whether it's learning writing skills, learning how to take tests, and learning how to express yourself in written form. Thank you again, Right Writers. Take care. Have a wonderful rest of your week. And I hope to see you all again soon next week. Next week, we'll be looking at sample essays, which scored a 2. And we will look at 2 sample essays. Take care, Right Writers. All right, cruise out. Bye-bye.